survivors, and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. And in this video we are going to be taking a little look at a brand new specialist skill that is going to be coming to RTS. This is going to be just a little preview and some kind of thoughts and ideas on how this specialist skill could be utilized by characters that could come out in the future. This is kind of like the preview I've done in the past of Energized as a specialist skill and also Sentinel. If you want to go check out those previews to kind of see how it works, you can. But we'll just get into the info on this upcoming new specialist skill in RTS. Now, as you've probably seen on the thumbnail, the look of the new specialist skill is going to be this right here. It's kind of like the theatre, comedy, tragedy kind of mask setup that you've seen probably in the past, TV shows, so on and so forth. And it's got a little like purple arrow doing like a circle as if it's going around and around and around. This specialist is going to be called Replicate. Now, Replicate can be used on attack or defense. I'll give you a couple of moments to try and think of what potentially it could be, but this is a brand new specialist coming to RTS. This is what it looks like on the icon. Let's get into bigger information on how this specialist skill is actually going to work. And here is that information, a full breakdown on the specialist skill itself. It says Replicate. When using defend or another action against a specialist for the first time, the target specialist skill preemptively gets copied onto this fighter for the rest of combat. This means that your fighter, when they go into combat, effectively doesn't actually have a specialist skill, and it will randomly have a specialist skill based on certain parts of that character's kit, how they would apply things to enemies or teammates, because I have got confirmation from Scopely that this will work on teammates. And this is pretty interesting because obviously on an attack team, this could mean there is a very good specialist that you like a lot, and then this character could potentially do a buff or something before the fight starts to that teammate, and they would replicate that specialist skill onto themselves. The same could be said for a defense team character. They could do pretty much the same deal. They could potentially do a buff or a heal or something to a teammate that is a specialist and replicate their specialist skill onto themselves for the rest of combat. Not only would this just be powerful based on who that specialist is, but now you'd have two of that specialist in a team. It could mean things like Overheal, Bodyguard 2, Vengeance, Halo 2, basically any of the more problematic ones on defense teams could be replicated onto this new character, and you would not only have one of that specialist, but potentially two on that team. Doubling up on certain ones, like for instance Bodyguard 2, does make things a lot more problematic. The kind of replication you'd want on the character will come down to how the rest of their kit works. If they don't have much self-heal potential, you wouldn't want something like Overheal. But if they did have something where when they take damage or hits, or when their specialist skill procs, you could potentially have something like Bodyguard 2 coming very useful. It does massively come down to the character's kit on what ones you want to replicate, but the potential is kind of endless when it comes to replication for attack or defense. I will say there's probably one downside to this specialist skill in that you wouldn't necessarily really want to replicate someone's specialist skill on the other team. An attack team character getting a defense team's character's like specialist skill isn't that great, and then a defense team character getting an attack team character's specialist skill generally wouldn't be that great either. So it will have to generally be things on their own team to replicate based on their positioning in the team, or maybe there could be an overall RNG factor. So for instance, we have got a passive here. This is a passive from Gold Mythic Nor, and it says always prepared at the start of each wave and turn, heal this fighter by 70% of their max HP. Now imagine instead of it being a self-heal, it was all adjacent teammates. That means you would be guaranteeing the character with the replicate specialist skill actually replicating the specialist skill of the character next to them. It cannot take it from the leader because they don't have a specialist skill to actually replicate. It would always go to the one that you actually place them in a line with. This would actually obviously be good. If it was a team-wide heal, it would be one of 3 specialists potentially on a defense team. if all 3 specialists are good, this could actually introduce more of an RNG factor when your team is being attacked. And what could be a bonus there is your team isn't just the obvious straightforward A, B, C, D, which is what a lot of teams become in the end because people are very used to attacking teams based on their setup. Replicate will just make it different every time someone attacks it. So there'll be a little bit of RNG there, and generally speaking, defense teams having RNG is a big bonus because obviously you don't want it to be too obvious and straightforward to take out. Now, another one that could potentially be used on a character, for instance, on an attack team, could be something like this, where it's when this fighter performs their signature move, 100% chance a random teammate recovers from all penalties. This is from Gold Mythic Lock, but this could be on anyone. This is a passive skill, and it could potentially have the recovers from all penalties be like an attack buff, and it could preemptively happen before the attack happens. So it could give the character who has replicate an attack buff, plus the character in the line with them could get an attack buff. And then obviously as the specialist skill reads, it says they will preemptively copy onto this fighter for the rest of combat that specialist skill. So for instance, if you had a decap in the same line as someone with replicate and they did a buff onto the teammate before doing their attack, be it from the signature move itself, be it from a passive that procs before the fight or before a signature move occurs, this would then enable the character to become a decap character before they do their initial hit. So if they took down the enemy with that hit, could potentially then be decapped. Again, on attack, it would primarily be aimed at teammates because those are the ones, generally speaking, who are going to have the better specialist skills for an attack team. I would say compared to a defense team, an attack team replicate isn't going to be as effective right now, but this is mainly because attack team specialist skills are not that powerful. The defense team specialist skills are way more powerful than the attack team ones, and attack team characters haven't really had a good specialist skill for a little while, honestly, except maybe Energize, and that's pretty much it. Now, it also says when using a defend action. Now, I'm not really sure how this is going to work with a defend action, but there could be something in their kit that makes them defend, and then when they defend, something could happen. For instance, they could heal adjacent teammates, and then they could replicate that character's specialist skill that they healed next to them. Like I said, the potential's kind of endless on attack or defense. I think this is primarily going to be a better specialist skill on defense as it stands, but it will be useful on attack, and hopefully we do get some other good specialist skills in the future that work on attack and enhance attack abilities that are actually worthwhile replicating, because the best specialist skills on attack have kind of slowly fallen off. Things like decap as a specialist skill is nowhere near as good as it was before, but a lot of the defense team ones are way more powerful. You're getting a lot of second editions of the defense team specialist skills, which are very, very useful indeed. So that's it on my thoughts on the new specialist skill Replicate. Do give me any ideas or thoughts you would have on what kind of specialist skill you would want to get replicated in the comments down below. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.